Thank you. There we are. It's so good um, to see you, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Kasuga. Uh, Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Marisela Cervantes, chair of the committee, alongside Dr. Phillips and Dr. Kasuga. It's exciting to see so many people joining us today. Um, this is the first of two committee meetings that we'll be having this year to review and discuss active legislation for the 2024 year and to review the status of regulatory packages approved by the Board of Psychology. Ms. Whitney, do you have an announcement about PPD?
Hi, good afternoon. Attending today's Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee meeting provides you with CPD credit under category number 1, attendance at a California Board of Psychology meeting, and will also count towards credit for the laws and ethics requirements. For your CPD records, are you guys able to hear me? It sounds like you might not be able to.
It's a little hard to hear. If you can get closer to the microphone.
See if I can get a little closer. Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay, so let me start over. Attending today's Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee meeting provides you with CPD credit under category number 1, attendance at a California Board of Psychology meeting. It will also count towards credit hours for the laws and ethics requirements. For your CPD records, please notate today's date as April 12th, 2024, and note that we are here for the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee meeting. At the end of this meeting, I will announce how many hours you can be credited. If you called into the meeting, please email bopce@dca.ca.gov. Again, bopce@dca.ca.gov with your name, license number, and the phone number you used to call in. If you signed in using the computer or mobile device, your attendance is automatically documented and no further information is necessary. Back to you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I skipped an important part of our agenda, which is item number 1, to officially call the meeting to order and establish a quorum. Thank you, Miss Whitney.
Cervantes,
Here.
Kasuga,
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
A quorum is established.
Thank you, Ms. Pruto. Sorry about that. Got out of order there. But we went through some housekeeping for item number 2. So now item number 3 on the agenda is public comment for items not on the agenda. Note, the committee may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda at a future meeting. This is per Government Code sections 11125 and 11125.7a. Is there any committee comments? If not, we'll open public comment. Seeing none, let's open public comment.
This is the moderator. Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment, please type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen, or simply raise your hand. If you've called into the meeting, you can press *3 to raise your hand. We'll give you a moment. All right, I do see one raised hand and a request for comments. So just a reminder, you will have 2 minutes to speak, and I'll give you a 30-second warning, and that's just for the sake of time. We've got a lot of attendees on this call. So the first request for comment is from Alexia Estrada, and Alexia, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go, you're unmuted.
Hi. My concern is I know we're talking about the interstate compact today, where you guys are, and I have some concerns about out-of-state providers doing telehealth in California and how that could impact insurance reimbursement rates, because out-of-state psychologists may be able to afford a lower cost of living and a lower reimbursement rate compared to psychologists that live in California, and how that could potentially price us out of that market in providing telehealth.
All right, the next request for comment is from Dr. Michael Pines. And Dr. Pines, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. This is my first meeting, and I just was wondering, I'm part of the LA County Child and Adolescent Suicide Review Team, and one of our co-chairs is part of the Mental Health Committee of the California Association of School Psychologists. And I know that they are supporting some legislation regarding the suicide prevention policies in schools. And as I learn about what they're doing, how do I let this committee know that these actions are taking place, so that we can either perhaps support them? So that's really more of a question than a comment.
All right, thank you.
Just really quick, Mr. Pope or Ms. Sorick, do you have a way of just making the connection with the previous speaker?
Hi, this is Antoinette Sorick, Executive Officer with the board, and you can email Bob Mail at dca.ca.gov. And if it's a bill that the committee chair would like placed on the agenda, we can bring it up for discussion on a noticed agenda.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again, everyone, for being with us today. So moving into our first action item is item number 4, discussion and possible approval of the committee meeting minutes from June 16, 2023. Ms. Whitney?
Hi,
Go ahead.
So yeah, basically, what you had just said, that it's up for approval, discussion, and possible approval of the minutes from June of 2023.
Is there any comment from the committee?
I have no comments, but I would
can,
make a motion that we would approve the minutes.
I second that.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Katsuga. We'll now open public comment and then come back and take a vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've reopened the question and answer panel. If any of the member of the public would like to comment on agenda item 4, the approval of the meeting minutes, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions and we'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Ms. Prato, can you call the vote?
Cervantes,
Aye.
Kasuga, Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
Our motion passes. Thank you. Now, the next item is legislation for the 2024 legislative session review and possible action. The first item, A, is legislative proposals. Item number 1 is Psychological Associates Business and Professions Code, Section 2913, change of supervisor fee, Business and Professions Code, Section 2987, Health and Safety Code, 124-260. Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Dr. Cervantes, and good afternoon. Board staff submitted a proposal to the Senate Committee on Business Professions and Economic Development for technical non-substantive changes to be included in the committee's omnibus bill this year. The proposal included amendments to Business and Professions Code 2913, 2987, and Health and Safety Code 124-260. Amendment to Business Professions Code 2987 is regarding the $25 fee associated with the request to change supervisors for psychological testing technicians, as the $25 fee was inadvertently removed from Business Professions Code 2987 when Senate Bill SB 816 was passed last year. And the proposal would just add that fee back into that Business Professions Code. The amendment to Business Professions Code 2913 addressed current language related to the requirements of a foreign master's degree and the advancement to candidacy, as the current language has created confusion not only to applicants seeking licensure for psychological associate for the registration, but to also licensing staff, and the proposed amendments would clarify the requirements. On March 1st, the proposed language for Business and Professions Code 2913 was amended, and the amendment and proposal was approved by the board. The amended language was submitted back to the Senate committee and to the consultants for it to be included in the proposal. The last amendment was to Health and Safety Code 124-260 to update the language, as the code referenced outdated registration categories for registered psychologists and psychological assistant, which was updated to psychological associate. On March 18th, Senate Bill 1526 was introduced by the committee. The language currently includes the proposed amendment to the Health and Safety Code. However, at this time, the other proposed amendments have not been included in the bill language. Board staff has been in contact with the committee consultants regarding the other two proposals. The consultants advised that the other proposals are still being reviewed for consideration for SB 1526. Also, in the discussions with the committee consultant, it was found that other Business Professions Code and Health and Safety Codes also included the outdated registration categories, and board staff advised the proposed changes should also apply to those sections as well. And at this time, board staff is continuing to monitor SB 1526 and for the other proposed amendments to be included into the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. The board approved this at the last meeting. Do we need to take action? Approve the language, I mean. Would you like us to take an action on this?
The staff recommendation is for the committee to recommend to the full board to request that the Senate committee consider the additional amendments in the proposal so that they are included in the SB 1526 omnibus bill.
Well, great. I understand what you mean. I'm going to try to say it in a motion. So help me out if I miss something. Do we have a motion to adopt to adopt as a committee recommendation for the board to request? No, wait, I'm messing this up already. The motion is for the
I can try to attempt to make the motion, Dr.
Go
Cervantes.
ahead, Dr. Kasuga, because I'm getting my statements twisted here.
So I move that the committee recommend to the board to request the Senate committee to consider the additional changes to the Business and Professions Code sections 2913 and 2987 relating to fees and education to qualify for a psychological associate registration.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga. I think that was it. Do you second that, Dr. Phillips?
I second.
Did we get it right, Mr. Pope?
That sounds correct.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Is there any committee comment on this? No.
I think this was part of the legislative visit talking points that we discussed with some of the Assembly and Senate staff and members that we met with during the legislative visits last February 2024.
Yes. We also discussed it at our last board meeting. So now we have a full recommendation to now include these additional 2 sections. Do you have any comment, Dr. Phillips, before I open public comment?
No comment.
Okay, let's go ahead and open public comment on this item. Thank you, Mr. Polk, for your help with this.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to make a comment on this motion, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. If you've called into the meeting, you can raise your hand by pressing *3. And a reminder, you'll have 2 minutes to comment with a 30-second warning. I see Dr. Fred Martin has his hand up. So Dr. Martin, you should be able to unmute yourself. All right, we'll try that one more time. Dr. Martin, if you see a prompt to unmute, go ahead and click on it. All right, Dr. Martin, we'll try this one more time. And there you are. You're unmuted.
Hand raised in there. My apologies to the committee.
Oh, okay. No worries. No
I'm
worries.
trying to negotiate the board meeting.
Sure. All right, we have all been there. Okay, I'm seeing no request for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Patel, can you help us by calling the vote?
Cervantes,
Aye.
Kasuga,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Roll is complete.
Okay, the motion carries. Thank you. The next item is item 5B, review of bills for active positions, recommendations to the board. The first one, what we're going to do with this is we're going to, after each bill, so we're going to read the first bill, review the bill, ask for committee and staff comments, then public comment, and then we'll vote on if we want to take a position. So that's what we're going to do on these 4 bills. Okay, just by way of housekeeping. This first one is AB 227 by Manshine, Healing Arts, Continuing Education, Menopausal Mental and Physical Health. The item begins on page 95 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope?
Thank you. On February 8th, AB 2270 was introduced by Assemblymember Mainshine. AB 2270 was introduced to allow medical providers, including psychologists, to have an option to take a course in menopausal mental health or physical health as part of the continuing education or professional development requirements by adding Business and Professions Code 2914.4. On February 26, AB 2270 was referred to the Assembly Committee on Business and Professions. On April 1st, the bill was amended by the Business and Professions Committee, which removed the term physical health from the course requirement and added within the scope of their practice to Business and Professions Code 2914.4 as to fully read as a licensee shall have the option of taking coursework on menopausal mental health within the scope of their practice to satisfy continuing education requirements. Board staff has met with the consultants and they proposed additional amendment to the language. And in that, the language was amended on April 10th. It still adds Business Profession Code 2914.4, but now it reads as, in determining its continuing professional development, the board shall consider including a course in menopausal mental or physical health. The new language still does not fully require the course to be completed if the bill was to pass. But at this time, board staff is still continuing to monitor the bill for additional amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Is there any committee or staff comment on this? Do we have
I have a question for Mr. Polk. Mr. Polk, as I understand, then the course would have to meet the continuing professional development requirements that relate to continuing education. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah, the course would still need to meet our requirements.
Now, obviously, this is an important issue, particularly as to women's mental health, but I don't think there's anything that prohibits people from doing that now, provided that there's a course that does it. So I'm not sure if we need to take affirmative action or not, but I'd be interested in hearing what the other committee members have to say.
I agree with Dr. Phillips in terms of like the necessity of such continuing education. And I have a question for Mr. Polk. So in terms of the staff recommendation, do you have a recommendation? And I'm thinking more in the lines of, do you think there's going to be changes that are still can happen between now and the final language of the bill? Just want to get the thoughts on that end.
I'm sure, yeah. So in my discussions with the committee consultant, she didn't imply there's going to be any additional amendments. She was reaching out to all the affected boards that would be listed in the bill. Some of the other boards did have concerns, such as like the Board of Behavioral Sciences, since they do school psychologists, they're kind of concerned of why would we require our licensees to take a course in menopausal mental health if we're, if our licensees are dealing with students. So I think with her proposed amendments of just giving the board the option to consider including a course, I think that was their kind of way to fix the language. And as far as recommendation, since it's more of a policy, I was leaving it up to the committee just to review the bill and see if they see if the committee had a specific position if they wanted to take on this. Like I said, the language currently, the way it's written, it's not fully requiring the board to make that a requirement. It's just allowing us to consider it as an option.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and since it's not going to be required, I see that like possibly supporting a bill would increase encouragement for some of our licensees, especially the ones that work with women and the population that's affected by this, to consider taking an optional menopause mental health course, especially since it highlights, mental health.
So then do we have a motion to recommend a position of support for AB 2270?
I so move.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips.
And I second. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Kasuga. If there's no other comment, I see none. I'll go ahead and open public comment so we could call the vote.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the moderator, and I have opened the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2270, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We are displaying instructions, and I see we already have a raised hand. We have a call-in user, number 5. So call-in user, you should be able to unmute. I believe unmute is *6. There you go.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. My name is Dr. Chantal Miller. I deal with disability, especially with women, and they're older. And so I am dealing with menopausal issues, but I'm confused as to why this has to be a bill. Because when we're doing our continuing education courses, we can elect to choose like what we want to focus on when it's like something outside of the requirement like law and ethics. So I don't understand why there needs to be a bill for this, because if somebody's specifically working with a client on this particular issue, then I would think that they would want to get more education and information in regards to how to help their clients.
All right, and we have Anita Mook, their chair, who just typed in the comments that she feels the same way, that there's nothing stopping them from taking a course right now.
Was that the last?
Yes, that is it. I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Sherry?
Ms. Chairman,
Yes?
Ms. Chairperson, Dr. Chairperson.
Would you like to?
Yeah, I just wanted to say in response to the comments, I'm of the same mind. I think, however, considering the important impact of menopause and related biological changes on mental health, I think it's important to make, perhaps we take a support position simply to indicate that we're supportive of this being a consideration for licensees.
And I just want to say that I concur that. Did you have another comment, Dr. Kasuga, before I call the vote?
Yeah, so yeah, I think the same as the highlighting the importance of this as a continuing education might encourage more providers. And the thing about like what I'm seeing in terms of the availability of continuing education, it tends to be limited, and like bills like this can encourage more continuing education providers to provide more courses out there. So just in terms of access, not necessarily as like kind of like a burden to our licensees to take it, since it's optional anyways, but just like I guess a support position would encourage both the licensees who maybe have not considered to take such course to take such course. I know there's like options out there, number one, and number two, to just like maybe it can encourage more providers to provide continuing education. Either way, I think that highlighting the importance of it, and that we're supporting our licensees to get education on menopause mental health is I think is has some benefit to it.
Thank you both, Dr. Kasuga and Dr. Phillips. Ms. Pruteau, can you help us by calling for the vote?
Kasuga,
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
I do notice there is one additional commenter, but my vote is aye.
Thank you. I will defer to Dr. Cervantes on how to proceed.
Madam Moderator, can you ask if the speaker might have a comment on this item we just voted on?
Of course. And we have a second person raising their hand as well. We'll go with the first, Robert Cipriano. Robert, did you have a comment on AB 2270?
It was referenced one of the earlier items, not on this section, so I apologize.
Okay. And then we'll check with David. David DeBus, did you have a comment on AB 2270?
Assembly person in where I live, I think that asking this to be especially mentioned, the menopausal mental health, and also the number 3, maternal mental health, points to the necessity of getting knowledge about recent research. There's a lot of recent research that I think a properly prepared psychologist should be aware of. And so I think it's good to put this in writing in front of people who are who care about preparing themselves.
All right, thank you. And that is all. I return the floor back to you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to our public speakers. The next item is number 2, AB 2282, McKinner Family Reunification Services. This item begins on page 101 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope?
Yes, thank you. On February 8th, AB 2282 was introduced by Assemblymember McKinner. AB 2282 will provide that reunification services do not need to be provided to a parent or guardian when the court finds that the parent or guardian of the child has been convicted of a violent felony against the child. It would also limit criminal convictions used to deny reunification services to families. It would amend the law tonight to deny services only to the most serious and violent felons. By expanding the scope of individuals requiring reunification services, the bill would also impose additional duties on county child welfare departments. AB 2282 is being presented today as the board took interest in reunification services, specifically the use of reunification camps, and supported SB 331, which was passed last year, which established the Child Safety Act, which prohibited a court from ordering family reunification treatments in a custody or visitation dispute. Even though AB 2282 is not specific to child custody cases, the bill is being presented today for the committee review. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Drs. Katsuga and Phillips, do you have any comment on this one?
I just have a brief comment. I think because of the testimony we've received before about family reunification camps, we took a particular interest in the previous legislation. This legislation just seems to clarify the scope of family reunification services. And as such, I'm not sure that it necessarily falls directly within our bailiwick. So I would suggest we take a watch position as it relates to this. So my motion would be that we recommend to the board taking a watch position on this. I don't know if there's necessary to do a motion for purposes of watching a bill.
Mr. Polk, would you prefer that we take a motion for a watch? Or is this a question for Mr. Payne?
Hi, Chair. This is Anthony Payne. I would say for purposes of a watch, that's no action is needed.
No action is needed. Okay.
You are certainly welcome to do that, but that's not required.
Okay.
I withdraw my motion.
Okay. Dr. Kasuga?
Yeah, I agree. I think that I think that it's good to watch just because of our interest in it. As far as this particular bill, I don't think it involves our licensees. So I agree with Dr. Phillips about just watching the bill for now.
Okay, thank you both. We'll go ahead and do Mr. Payne, do we need to open public comment even if we're not going to take action?
If there's no vote before the committee, there's no vote that's required prior to, since there's no vote, there's no comment that's required. We just need a public comment for each agenda item then.
Okay, and the agenda item is number 5.
That is correct.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. Okay, so then we would like to on this item number 2, AB 2282, we are not going to take an action. We just would like to keep a watch on that, or watch that bill, staff to help us watch that bill as it proceeds through the legislative process. Now we're going to move to the next item. It's item number 3, AB 2581, Mainshine, Healing Arts, Continuing Education, Maternal Mental Health. And this item begins on page 128 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope.
Yes, thank you. On February 14th, AB 2581 was introduced by Assemblymember Mainshine. This bill is very similar, almost identical to AB 2270. AB 2581 would just allow medical providers, including psychologists, to have the option to take the course in maternal mental health as part of the continuing education requirements. And it would add 2914 to the 0.4 to the Business and Professions Code. This language was also amended on April 10th along with AB 2270, and it reads as, in determining its continuing professional development, the board shall consider including the course in maternal mental health. So it was amended almost identical to AB 2270. And at this time, I'm still in contact with the committee consultants and monitoring the bill for any additional amendments.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Do we have a motion to recommend a position of support for AB 2581 to the full board?
I move that we recommend to the board to support AB 2581.
I second the motion.
Thank you, Dr. Kasuga and Dr. Phillips. Do you have any further comment on this item? No. Okay, we'll go ahead and open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2581, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is a moderator. I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you. Ms. Pruto, can you call the vote?
Kasuga?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Phillips?
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you. Then item number 4, Aguiar Curry, federally qualified health centers and rural health clinics psychological associates. This item begins on page 134 of the combined packet. Mr. Polk?
AB 2703 was introduced by Assemblymember Aguilar Curry on February 14th. This bill would amend current law to allow psychological associates to perform services in federally qualified health centers and rural health centers and allow the centers to be reimbursed for the services. As the existing law does not specifically allow these centers to be reimbursed for services provided by psychological associates, and it is felt by allowing psychological associates to perform services in these centers, it would open a greater access to care. This bill is co-sponsored by the California Psychological Association and the Primary Care Association. On March 14th, AB 2703 was referred to the Assembly Committee on Health, and the board staff is currently monitoring this bill.
Okay, thank you. Do we have committee comment on this? Do we have a motion to recommend a position of support on AB 2703?
I move that we recommend to the board a position of support for AB 2703.
Do you second that? Yep. Okay, so it's been moved by Dr. Kasuga and second by Dr. Phillips to take a position of support for AB 2703. Hearing no other public comment, no other committee comment, we'll open to public comment.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on AB 2703, please either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. I do see we have a raised hand from Dr. Elizabeth Winkleman. And Dr. Winkleman, you should be able to unmute. There you go.
From the California Psychological Association, I want to thank the committee for considering a support position. As Mr. Polk had mentioned, CPA is a co-sponsor of this bill. And I just wanted to emphasize how important it is for our members in terms of having the opportunity to gain experience in these training sites, maintaining and opening new training sites, and increasing access for behavioral health services to the individuals and families who seek treatment in FQHCs and RHCs. And just also to point out that currently AMFTs and ACSWs are reimbursable. So it's very important that our trainees be able to be reimbursed in those settings as well. So thanks very much.
All right, I see no further requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Thank you, Ms. Pruto.
Sorry about that. Kasuga?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Phillips?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The motion carries. The next item is item number 5, AB 2862 Gibson, licenses, African American applicants. And this item begins on page 158 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope?
Thank you. AB 2862 was introduced by Assemblymember Gibson on February 15th. This bill would require various business professions, including healing and art boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs, to prioritize African American applicants seeking licensure, especially applicants who are descended from a person who was enslaved in the United States. This bill has been referred to the Committee on Business Professions and the Committee Judiciary on March 11th. Board staff attended a legislative roundtable with the Department of Consumer Affairs legislative unit and other healing arts boards. And there was discussions not regarding specifically the process of expediting the applicants, but more discussions on how the implementation and the verification of documents would be determined to who qualifies for the expedite. Then at this time, as the way the language is currently written in the bill, it doesn't really provide any information about documentation, what the requirements would be, and how to basically implement this bill if it was passes. So right now, our staff is continuing to monitor the bill for additional amendments.
Mr. Polk, we were having some trouble with your audio.
Oh, okay, I apologize.
Do we, I'm looking to the committee. Do you need Mr. Polk to repeat any portion of his summary?
I think I understood what Mr. Polk had to say, although it was a little crackly. I do have a question I want to ask, but that was the question you asked, so I will keep my answer there.
Do you have any comment on this item, 5B5?
I do. I'm curious, and it's not that I'm opposed at all to the idea of prioritizing applications. It just seems like we've got a growing list of types of applicants that we prioritize. Is the licensing committee with us today? Ms. Chung, is she here today?
Yes, Dr. Phillips, I'm here.
Okay. At present, how many, because I know there's several related to the military service or being a spouse of a service member. I'm just wondering approximately how many types of applicants we're asked to prioritize already.
Yes, thanks for the question. So in addition to honorably discharged military veterans and their spouses, we also expedite anyone who is able to provide verification that they are a asylee, special immigrant visa holders alike. So there are the additional types of applicants that we expedite.
Okay, so it's not a huge list.
I would say we have 5 types total.
Okay, and does that occupy a lot of staff time or no?
We don't really have a measure to quantify that, but whenever we do see them, they get expedited according to the law. So they just get in front of the line of everyone else.
Okay. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you, Ms. Chung.
No problem.
Dr. Katsuga?
With Mr. Polk, is it my understanding? Is it correct that currently this bill is in its starting stages, and we don't know yet a lot about how the implementation is going to happen, fiscal impacts, and all that? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. My guess, just in our conversations with ECA's legislative unit or legislative affairs unit and other healing boards, I'm sure that there will be more information provided as boards take positions on this bill. So I would expect that there would be additional amendments to this bill. In the fact of getting more information on the implementation and the verification and the required documents that would need to be submitted for the bill to move forward.
Okay, got it. Because of that, I think we should. I think it's premature to make any decisions on position and just watch it for the time being.
I would agree.
I concur. I think there's still a few unknowns on this matter. Thank you, Mr. Polk. We're gonna support a watch position so that you can continue monitoring the developments. And if there's changes, we still have another committee meeting this year where we could review those. Thank you. Moving to item number 6, SB 1012. Wiener, the Regulated Psychedelic Assisted Therapy Act and the Regulated Psychedelic Substances Control Act. This item begins on page 162 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope?
Yes, thank you. On February 5th, SB 1012 was introduced by Senator Wiener. And on February 14th, it's been referred to Senate committees on business, professions, and economic development and public safety. SB 1012 would enact the Regulated Psychedelic Assisted Therapy Act, which would establish the Board of Regulated Psychedelic Facilitators within the Department of Consumer Affairs. So it would be a new board that would be created under the department. And it would license and regulate psychedelic assisted therapy facilitators. The new board would be required to establish education, training, and other qualifications and requirements for obtaining a license as a regulated psychedelic assisted therapy facilitator, and required the board to be appointed by April 1st of 2025 and begin accepting license applications by April 1st of 2026. In the bill language, it does give some guidance on who would qualify as a regulated psychedelic facilitator, and that would be anyone 21 years of age or older and who have completed curriculum in regulated psychedelic facilitation and related subject in and it would be hours established by the board. And it would also include student knowledge and skills prior to experience accepted by the board as an equivalent to the required curriculum or practicum, including existing licensing in a health or mental health profession, and any practicum experience that is required, and it will be established by the board. And the individual would also have to pass a regulated psychedelic facilitator competency assessment exam, and that it would be generally recognized principles and standards, and that is created and administered by the board or an entity designated by the board once it's created.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Is there committee comment on this item?
I have a question, Mr. Polk. So, for instance, there is one of our licensee who wants to provide, let's say, ketamine assisted therapy for someone with PTSD. So they have a license with us, and they're going to get licensed in this by this other board in order to do that, or would this be for someone who is doing the therapy with our licensee? That is kind of just like there to assist with the psychedelic that's being used during that whole therapy session. So, that's a little bit like confusing to me in terms of how we are going to be involved, how we are going to be affected by the addition of this additional regulatory board.
Sure, yeah, and that's one of the questions we had as well is for these types of facilitators, should it be handled by a completely new board that is starting from the ground up, or would it be better suited to be attached to a board that's already established? As example, our board. In the language, there is a spot in language that says that the person who would qualify as a facilitator could have an existing license in health or in health or a mental health profession. So I'm not 100% sure if that means that if someone's already licensed under our board, as long as they have the curriculum or additional courses and is able to pass the assessment exam, if they can also have a dual license. So yeah, but back to the thing, that was one of our questions as well. is if this would be better suited for a completely new board specifically handling these, or would it be better to be under one of the existing licensing or healing arts boards under the Department of Consumer Affairs?
Dr. Phillips? Oh, go ahead.
Just like a follow-up question, how involved are we with like that whole process? Because this is something that I think is a little tricky, and because like for instance, for that example that I provided there for like a ketamine, assisted like therapy, you usually need two people, like and one doesn't have to be like a license one of our licensees, but maybe the other facilitator is. But so yeah, there's a lot of types, and there's a lot of things that I mean, one of it is like it could have someone that is licensed by our board, but like, are they going to make it optional? Like in some cases, they can provide like some form of therapy, that's like associated with mental health, but they're not considering it as psychological services. And that could be tricky. Who makes those decisions if our board isn't involved in the creation, to consult with the creation of that other board? So I think that I wanted to know like how involved are we?
As far as the language goes, it doesn't make any reference to our board or consulting with other boards. The language specifically is would set up and how to create the board from the ground up, and who would qualify as a facilitator, and then allowing the board to make that determination and to create the regulations and application process. But as far as language go, it doesn't include other healing art boards into the consulting or facilitating of the new license type or the board specifically.
So I guess it seems to me that like until we get that final language, and then until we can evaluate that final language, we cannot like really do anything as far as where it is right now. Dr. Phillips, I think you're muted.
Oh, is there any indication that somebody there?
Your audio.
Oh, sorry. I came out, but is there any indication that there's going to be clarification of this legislation, or is it likely to remain as it is?
Did you catch that, Mr. Pope?
I apologize. I caught some of it. I think what what Dr. Phillips was asking is if the language is going to remain the same, or if we have an indication of the language being updated. At this time, I don't have that information. The bill is I believe set to go through the committees here soon for review and for comment. So I'll continue to monitor, and I can reach out to the author's office as well, leading up to those hearings and after the hearings, and kind of get a feel of where if the language is going to be amended. I know the language has been amended slightly at this time, but in this case, it remains intact that the bill language specifically creates the act and then sets guidelines in creating the board or the new board.
This one seems very vague to me. I think basically what they're proposing is that there could be a person who's neither a mental health professional nor a medical professional who could be administering psychedelics and providing psychedelic assisted therapy. It seems to me, and maybe I'm misapprehending what's going on here, but it seems to me it's like creating a separate category of psychedelic assisted therapy facilitator. And I recently started to read this. Go ahead.
Excuse me, this is the moderator. Dr. Phillips, you're really breaking up. You might want to try just turning off your camera. That'll save you some bandwidth and maybe get you a better connection.
It's better.
No. Another option you could try is you wouldn't have to log out, but you could switch your audio to call in. To do that, you would just go to the top of your screen where it says audio and video.
It's better. You're not hearing me.
We can hear you. It's just that there's so much static. It's almost like you're underwater.
I guess I'm going to log in and log out my badging.
Well, you could try, you don't have to do that. You could try using your phone for your audio. If you have a cell phone, just go to, so you could stay logged into the meeting, but go to audio and video at the top of the screen and click on switch audio and then follow the instructions to call in.
You have greater confidence in my technical proficiency than I do.
Actually, now you're fine. I don't know what's different, but you're fine now. So,
okie doke.
Yeah.
I'll start my comments back over again. I guess what I find concerning about this is that it sounds like they're creating a new class of health service provider that's going to facilitate the administration and or therapy related to psychedelics, who doesn't necessarily need to be mental health or medical professional. I was hoping when I originally started looking at this bill that what we were talking about is having some kind of licensure for facilities that provided psychedelic assisted therapy, but it sounds like this is for individuals. And given the research that's emerging, there is always a good possibility that psychedelics will be helpful in mental health, although I hear an equal number of horror stories about people that go to get psychedelics administered that are supposed to be within the context of psychedelic assisted therapy. And basically they go and get the psychedelics, they sit around for a while, nobody really talks to them, and they leave. So I think that there's a lot of problematic things that are going on within the area of the administration that's occurring already, which I think is largely in the offices of psychiatrists and other medical professionals. So I wouldn't be really uncomfortable taking a supportive amended position. I frankly, at this point, I'm opposed to what's being suggested, if I'm understanding it correctly.
I agree with Dr. Phillips. I have concerns about the requirements for therapies that involve the provision of psychological services. There's just a lot of things that, that may be packaged as just, oh, this is not psychological services, but they very much are. If they have anything like some anxiety, some they require they require someone that is licensed by our board or to receive such services if it's if it's psychological services, and that's where the confusion will be. And it seemed vague to find comfort that, if it's facilitators could be required to be licensed, but it's on their discretion. So they might not consider someone needing more than just being able to handle, monitoring someone under psychedelics and, call that sufficient. So, I'm a little bit concerned about some of the vagueness in the language and the overlap with therapies that are, psychological in nature. Should we move to
Mr. Cervantes, we can't hear you.
Oh, it's
Sorry about that. What I was saying was I was going to recommend that we that we continue to monitor this bill. Because to me, it was unclear where those like intersections were with our licensees. But as we're discussing this, I'm wondering if it's more appropriate that we take a position of oppose and actually state where those interactions with our licensees might be problematic.
I think I would concur with that. I just think we'd need to refine the position, obviously, in the form of a letter or otherwise, but I think it would be to everyone's benefit if we say we're opposed because it's so unclear what they're exactly doing and how it impacts our licensee impacts consumers.
Should we public comment and then make a motion?
yes.
Dr.
Also, I just
Cervantes,
wanted to. I'll talk after Ms. Orrick's comments are heard.
Apologies.
No
I
problem.
just wanted to mention, because the tenor of the discussion sounded like the committee wanted to express some concerns, and that may look like an opposed position. The committee may want to consider articulating similarly in the past with other fields where there was a new board considered or a new licensing or registration category like applied behavior analysis. The sponsor of the bill held a stakeholder meeting and invited interested parties together. It feels like that might have been a step that was skipped here. And with psychedelic assisted therapy, this board and perhaps BBS may want to have a seat at the table if we're talking about therapy assisted scenarios here. I'm blanking on the word I'm looking for, but where that interaction would necessitate having someone with the relevant skills and training. If that's a concern that I'm hearing from the committee, that may be something you want to relay in an opposition. That would go obviously before the board for further discussion, and by then we may know more details at the May meeting. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Thank
So,
you.
Ms. Orick, was there a stakeholder meeting that we or they didn't have a stakeholder meeting? Is that what you're trying to say, that it would be helpful if they had a stakeholder meeting that we can participate in, or was there one held that we weren't able to participate in?
If there was a stakeholder meeting, we were not made aware of that meeting. So it feels like if that did not happen, that is kind of a necessary step when you're looking to create a new regulatory agency, that you bring stakeholders together and talk about the need for it, what it's going to do, and the scope.
I would move
Got
that
it.
we take an opposed position to the bill and request further clarification and interaction.
I second the motion. I also wanted to state that I agree that there is an increase in these types of therapies happening all across the state, and the need for regulation is important.
Yeah.
So I want to acknowledge that, and how it's written right now, that we have concerns, and we can lay out those concerns about the requirements and implementation, and I would appreciate like participation in a stakeholders meeting to
Thank
relay
you.
those concerns and to discuss issues of like overlap.
Thank you. Is there any other comment? Okay, I'll go ahead and open public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am opening up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on SB 1012, either raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. You'll have 2 minutes with a 30-second warning. And our first request for comment is from Linda Nishi-Stratner. Linda, you should be able to unmute yourself. There you go.
I am a licensee in California, but I reside in Oregon and just termed off the board a year ago in psychology. We were facing the same questions, so we're just a little step ahead of you. And
I'm sorry, Linda, your voice got really soft, so if you can get closer to the mic, that would help.
Is this any better?
It's a little better. You're still kind of soft.
I'll lean right into the computer then.
Thanks.
So I am a licensee in California, but I also am based in Oregon and termed off the Board of Psychology in Oregon over a year ago when we were facing the same question about psilocybin and about different ways of regulating that. And I guess my comment to you would be two things. One, you absolutely want to.
Oh, no.
This is the moderator. Has everyone lost the sound for Linda?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
It looks like she's frozen. Linda, we're going to go on to the next one, and maybe you can work on your audio, and if you're able to do that, you can, all right. The next person we had lowered their hand, so Linda, you might want to call in for your audio, and we'll go to the next person while you work on your audio. So the next person is calling user number 5, and you should be able to unmute. And I believe we press *6. There you go. You're unmuted, caller user 5.
Yes, I just had a question. If we have looked at how the use of psychedelics has interacted if clients are taking psychotropic medications already with a psychiatrist, because I had a client who came to me and said that they participated in utilizing psychedelics, but they were also on Klonopin and they had a reaction, but they did that before they notified me or their psychiatrist.
All right. This is the moderator. I see no further requests for comment.
Oh, did we get Linda back?
Let me check. Sorry, just refreshing the list here. We've got a little over 200 people logged in. And I'm not finding her, so I think she hasn't rejoined us.
Actually, I see her on the list and
yep.
she has her hand up.
Yes. All right, Linda, would you like to try speaking again? There you go, you're unmuted. And Linda, if you're talking, we still can't hear you. So another thing you can try is calling in for your audio. You can go to the top of the screen where it says audio and video and select another option for your audio. And you can also email the Board of Psychology at B as in board, O as in of, P as in psychology at dca.ca.gov. All right, we'll go on to the next request, which is from Michael D. Perlman, or excuse me, Mitchell. Mitchell, you should be able to unmute.
With raising my hand and not because I don't know if it belongs here, but so my experience in this is not limited, but it's also not extensive in this area. But for me, if we're going to be doing saying something to the board or asking for clarification, the confusion that seems to be coming in is less so, at least in my experience, for the professionals, and it's more so for the consumers. That the consumers don't understand the difference between therapeutic use of the psychedelics and going to a center, that just they're going in for a ketamine experience or something like that. And so I guess my caution would be is if they're going to be providing clarification to the professionals, it should be something also that makes it clear to the community, to the consumers on what they're looking for, if they're truly going for a therapeutic experience and not just an e-ticket on Disneyland. Anyways, that was my comment.
All right, I see no further requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. I see that Linda popped up again.
Oh, all right. And she's called in, so this should work.
Okay.
There you go, Linda,
Can you
you're
hear me
unmuted.
now?
Yes, yes, we can.
All right. I don't know where I went off, so I'll just say that I am a licensee in California, but I also am based in Oregon, where I turned off the board over a year ago when we were dealing with this exact same issue. And my advice, two things would be to absolutely be in the room where it happens, because if you're not involved in making the rules, then psychology will not be involved in in anything that happens with psilocybin treatment. And second, I would recommend that you call the Board of Psychology in Oregon, because we just went through all of that and are still dealing with all of the ramifications of that. And so they may have, the board may have other advice that's more specific than what I have, since I've been off the board for a year. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And thank you for your persistence. All right, Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. We have a motion to recommend a position of oppose for SB 1012 and request more clarification and interaction. It was moved by Dr. Phillips and second by Dr. Kasuga. Is there any further discussion? Ms. Prutel?
Kasuga?
Aye.
Cervantes?
Aye.
Phillips?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I hope Dr. Kasuga can weigh in with staff when that letter of opposition is formulated, and Dr. Phillips as well. Thank you. The next item is number 7, SB 1067, Smallwood Cuevas Healing Arts Expedited Licensure Process, Medically Underserved Area or Population. And this item begins on page 218 of the combined packet. Mr. Pope?
Thank you. So SB 1067 was introduced by Senator Smallwood Cuevas on February 12th. The bill would require each Healing Arts Board under the Department of Consumer Affairs to develop a process to expedite the licensure process. It would give priority to applicants who are seeking licensure if they demonstrate that their intent is to practice in a medically undeserved area or serve a medically underdeserved population. The bill has currently been referred to the Senate Committee on Business and Professions and Economic Development. In meeting with the Department of Consumer Affairs Legislative Unit and with other boards, the medical board advised at that time that their board currently expedites applicants who meet this criteria, as they provided that the definitions are federally defined, and that I believe they said they utilizes a database provided by HCI, where you can type in a zip code and it determines that if that area falls within that definition. And also too, the definitions fall within the Health and Safety Code. It's a Healthy Safety Code 128552, which defines medically undeserved area as a health professional shortage area or an area of the state where unmet priority needs for physicians exist. And it also defines medically undeserved population as individuals in the Medi-Cal program and uninsured populations. So that's the definitions that the Medical Board of California used to determine if that applicant meets those requirements. And at this time, the board is still monitoring the bill and see if there's any additional amendments for further information.
Thank you, Mr. Pope. Is there any staff comment? I'm sorry, committee comment?
Yeah, again, I have a question for Ms. Chung. Ms. Chung, based on the way that the statute's written, do you feel like there's a sufficient requirement for documentation so that we're actually able to execute if this were to happen?
I think as written, not quite adequate. So we need more.
That's helpful feedback. I certainly feel positively about the idea of providing services to underserved populations. Medically underserved populations is problematic in the area of psychology because obviously people could be medically adequately serviced and not psychologically adequately serviced. So tentatively, I would think that possibly we want to take a support position if we could have sufficient specificity as to how we would define these individuals and what documentation would be required from them in order to allow for allow us to be able to really evaluate whether that is actually the case for the particular applicant. But I'll be curious to hear what other board members have to say.
Thank you, Dr. Phillips. Dr. Kasuga? Did we lose Dr. Kasuga?
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Just it's hard to mute and unmute. I seem to double click it each time, so I mute myself again. Yeah, I mean, I care about making sure that we can expedite access to our licensees in these areas of the underserved areas. My thoughts will be more about impact on our staff, any confusion, which Dr. Phillips has also raised in terms of requirements, and sometimes I see that if they're basing it off of the HCI data, it qualifies a lot of people because technically practically you can consider most parts of California underserved. I don't think that's specific enough if that's the criteria they're using. I just have some questions with the implementation piece, but if we can solve that and we can implement it, then I can be in support of it.
Is there in is there this was on my notes too about how that medically underserved area was defined. Is there enough is that enough to work with if we took a position of support if amended, or do we need to be more specific about what we would like to see in that definition for us to fully support the bill? I'm thinking about our position and the letter we might have in the future.
Based on what Ms. Chung was saying earlier in the committee discussion, it sounds like a supportive amended to require a more specific verification on how a program would determine a medically underserved area so that we can make that determination for expedite for the application. And maybe having that clarification in the law. If that's something that, for example, medical board uses a particular qualification or a service or program, that may need to be spelled out.
Thank you, Ms. Sorick. So then, do we have a motion to recommend a position of support if amended for SB 1067 that would specify a verification on how a program would determine the underserved area?
Can I amend that slightly?
Okay, sure.
I would take a motion to support if amended if it clarified A, what constituted an underserved area or population, and B, what documentation would be necessary from the licensee as to their intentions to serve that area.
I second that motion.
Okay, that's better, Dr. Phillips. So we have a motion moved by Dr. Phillips and second by Dr. Kasuga to support SB 1067 if amended to include a definition of what constitutes the underserved area and what documentation would be needed to verify that a person is serving in that area. Did I say it right? Hey,
you got it. You got it.
Thank you. If there is no other comment, we'll open public comment. I'm sorry, if there's no other comment from committee or staff. I see none. Let's go ahead and open public comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on SB 1067, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, and I see, oh, they lowered it. We'll give people another moment. All right, I see no request for comment at this time. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pruto?
Kasuga?
Aye.
Cervantes,
Aye.
Phillips.
Aye.
Thank you.
The motion carries. Thank you. Before moving on to item 5C, I feel like we're at a good kind of midpoint in on our business for today. Could we take a short 10-minute break? Is that good? Or less?
Sounds great.
Okay, we'll recess for 10 minutes and then we'll come. We're going to take a quick break. Thank you, everybody. All right. Dr. Phillips, are you back?
I am now.
All right. Ms. Pruto, can you establish quorum so we could get going?
Yes. Kasuga,
Here.
Cervantes,
Here.
Phillips.
Here.
Roll is complete and a quorum established.
Thank you. So our next item is item 5C, bills with active positions taken by the board. And here we have item 5C1, AB 2051 Bonta Psychology Interjurisdictional Compact. And this item begins on page 233 of the combined packet. The board adopted an opposed position on this bill. Go ahead, Mr. Pope.
Yes, thank you. So Assembly Bill 2051 was introduced by Assemblymember Bonta. The bill would make California a compact state under the Psychology Interdictional Compact, or also known as PsyPact. It would facilitate the practice of telepsychology and the temporary in-person, face-to-face practice of psychology across state lines. On March 1st, the board did adopt an opposed position. On March 15th, an opposed letter was submitted to the members of the Assembly Business and Professions Committee, as well as the author's office. Currently, AB 2051 is scheduled to be heard in the Assembly Business and Professions Committee on April 16th, and staff will be attending the hearing to provide in-person testimony in opposition of AB 2051.
Thank you, Mr. Pope.
Thank you, Mr.
Am I echoing?
You echoed for 1 second.
Okay, sure.
This is the moderator. If people can make sure that they're muted when they're not speaking, that'll reduce the echo.
Okay. Thank you, moderator. Is there any staff or committee comment on this item? It's for informational purposes only. Go ahead, Miss Dr. Kasuga.
Mr. Polk, who will be attending the scheduled hearing on April 16th from our board?
That'd be Assistant Executive Officer John Burke. Mr. Burke will be.
Thank you.
I have no comment.
No. Okay, then we're going to move to the next item of the agenda. Item 6, legislative items for future meeting. The committee may discuss other items of legislation in sufficient detail to determine whether such items should be on a future committee or board meeting agenda, and or whether to hold a special meeting of the committee or board to discuss such items pursuant to Government Code Section 11125.4. Is there any committee comment? Staff comment?
Yes, I would just like to bring attention in the legislative roundtable that staff attended with the Legislative Affairs Unit with the Department of Consumer Affairs, staff was made aware of Assembly Bill 1991. Assembly Bill 1991 has been introduced by Assembly Member Bonta, and the bill would require boards that regulate healing art licensees or registrants to collect the workforce data from their licensees or registrants, and would require the demographic or workforce survey to be completed at the time of electronic license or registration renewal. And it would no longer be optional or give the option to decline to answer. And it would require that applicants who fail to complete the survey or provide the demographic data would be subject to discipline and would not be able to renew their license or registration until the demographic data or survey is completed or provided. This bill is planned to be presented to the full board in May, so additional information will be given at that time. But I wanted to make the committee aware at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. If there is no other staff comment, and I don't see any, then we can open for public comment.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the moderator. I've opened up the Q&A panel. If any member of the public would like to comment on legislative items for future meetings, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. Again, this is agenda item 6, legislative items for future meetings. And I do see we have some raised hands. The first is Dr. Trista L. Carr. And Dr. Carr, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can y'all hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, fabulous. Yeah, so with regard to the SIPAC situation, you said one of your staff members is going to be attending that legislative meeting. Is that, I couldn't hear exactly who that was. Is that one of our psychologists that are on your board, or is that not a psychologist who's going to be attending that?
It's staff.
It's a staff member. Okay. And they're going to be able to take all of the concerns that the psychologists have brought up and make sure that all of the issues are known, like what was mentioned earlier in terms of how is this going to affect our pay rates for insurance, as well as other issues that are brought up in the letter that you all have already issued them.
Yeah,
Okay.
yes, we have well documented our position. And as a matter of fact, if you review the records for our last board meeting, there's a lot of documents in there related to our position on this matter over the years.
Okay, excellent. Thank you, ma'am.
This is Rob Cipriano. I had commented earlier, and it was an error for the another legislative section, but I do want to comment as it relates to this particular point of interest. There was a psychologist in the very beginning that had discussed putting on the docket out-of-state psychologists that are doing telehealth for clientele in the state of California. And my point of interest, and certainly we can talk about it, is if we look at the data, collectively, whether we're looking at aggregate data or we're looking at data, on particular, whether it's a state or a federal, particular evidence-based document, I think, and again, I'm speaking kind of in general terms, I'm not citing any specific data. But if SIPAC is not approved, and that seems to be the direction that the board is going, then the psychologist earlier that wants to have out-of-state psychologist, or there was a concern, and I don't know exactly how she worded it because there was a little bit of static, but I did hear it, to now put this on the docket. There was a concern for out-of-state psychologists that are licensed in another state providing telehealth in the state of California that are licensed in California. There was a concern for that.
30 seconds.
I think that's what I heard. I'd like to get some commentary or some feedback to maybe counter that, because I think, let alone if we look at the data, the state of California has a significant portion of mental health challenges and a significant portion of substance abuse challenges. And when I signed up to be a psychologist 20-something years ago, it was always about the other person. It wasn't about the psychologist. It was always about the patient.
Was that the last public comment?
Yes, it was. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. All right. So now our next item on the agenda is item number 7, regulatory update review and consideration of additional changes. This is an information item that begins on page 264 of the combined packet. Mr. Polk?
Yes, included in the main material is the overview of the current regulatory packages the board is working on or proposing. I'd just like to provide a quick update on agenda item 7A, the inactive psychological associate registration regulatory package. The regulatory package was approved by agency on March 21st, and it was sent to the Office of Administrative Law for approval of publishing. The regulatory package was approved for publishing by Office of Administrative Law, and the 45-day public comment period started on April 5th, and that will be completed on May 21st.
Thank you, Mr. Polk. Is there any committee comment? No. Seeing none, we'll move to the next item on the agenda. And this is item number 8, recommendations. Oh, wait. Did I mess this up? Do we have a slide for number 8? There it is. Recommendations for agenda items for future board meetings. Note, the committee may not discuss or take action on any matter raised during this public comment section, except to decide whether to place the matter on the agenda of a future meeting pursuant to Government Code sections 11125 and 1125.7A. Is there any committee or staff comment?
I just want to add again that Assembly Bill 1991 has been added to the agenda for the May meeting. Be a full presentation on that bill presented at that time.
It's your audio is.
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Chair, I think what Mr. Polk was trying to say is that that bill is going to be added to is already added to the May agenda for the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Payne. I think it's important we review that bill, so thank you. Anything else from staff or committee? We're gonna open up public comment for item number 8.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've opened up the Q&A. If any member of the public would like to comment or recommend future agenda items, please raise your hand or type comment using the field in the lower right-hand corner of your screen. We'll give you a moment. All right, this is the moderator. I see no requests for comment. Madam Chair, I return the floor back to you.
Okay, thank you. Before completing our business for the day, Ms. Whitney, do you want to make an An announcement regarding the CPD credit?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So for attending today, you will receive 2 hours of CPD credit for participation under CPD category number 1, attendance at a Board of Psychology meeting. The hours will also count towards the law and ethics requirement. Again, for your records today, please note today's date as April 12th, 2024, the name of today's meeting, which is the Legislative and Regulatory Affairs Committee meeting, and 2 hours CPD for your records. Please note that the board does not provide certificates for attendance at this meeting. If you called in, email bopce@dca.ca.gov with your name, license number, and phone number used to call in. And if you signed in using a computer or a mobile device, your attendance is automatically documented and no information is necessary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whitney. Thank you, Dr. Phillips and Dr. Kasuga for being here and for participating in such a good conversation. I've enjoyed serving on this committee with the two of you, always so insightful. Thank you to the staff, Ms. Sorick, Mr. Payne, Mr. Polk, for all of your work to prepare us for this meeting. Actually, everybody who I didn't mention, because I know it's a lot of work to get us all here. I really appreciate the number of attendees that we had at today's meeting, and I hope that you stay with us through the legislative session so that you can comment as we progress, or as the bills progress through the process, and share your insight with us as well. Thank you for joining us. That concludes our meeting. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Dr. Chair.
Thank you.
Thank you.